Scene opens in a quiet bedroom. Morning light filters through blinds, casting thin lines across the bed. A soft ticking from the wall clock echoes through the tense silence. Mark's hands shook as he rifled through the top drawer of his nightstand. His eyes searched desperately, scanning every corner. It has to be here. The velvet box that held Emily's wedding ring, her most treasured possession, was gone. He blinked, disbelief tightening his chest. No, that's impossible. Panic rose like a tide, sudden and relentless. He opened the bathroom drawers, checked under the sink, and lifted the pillows on their bed. Every spot, every nook seemed empty, mocking him. The ring, the symbol of their love and commitment, was missing. Memories flashed unbidden, Emily laughing over breakfast, the soft brush of her hand against his, the way she tilted her head and smiled at him. That warmth now felt like a cruel contrast to the cold emptiness of the missing ring. His stomach twisted. How could it disappear? He remembered the brief visit from his brother, David, the day before, an innocent moment, or so he had thought. No. It couldn't be. Mark's heart raced. Fear gripped him, not just fear of losing the ring, but the terrifying thought that this might be more than a simple mistake. Trust, love, safety, all suddenly felt fragile, hanging by a thread he could barely see. A faint scratch on the nightstand caught his eye. A smudge of dirt on the dresser. Tiny details, almost invisible, but they stirred his instincts. His mind whirled with impossible possibilities. Could someone have taken it? Was this a cruel joke, or worse, a betrayal? He sank onto the edge of the bed, breathing uneven, eyes scanning the room as if it held answers. Each second stretched into an eternity. Every familiar object, Emily's mug on the nightstand, the framed photo of their wedding day, suddenly felt like clues in a puzzle he wasn't ready to solve. Mark gripped the edge of the mattress, jaw tight. His pulse hammered in his ears. The missing ring wasn't just a lost piece of jewelry. It was a signal. Something deeper. Something personal. Something that could shake the life he had built with the woman he loved. The scene closes with Mark staring at the empty nightstand, heart heavy, mind racing. The audience feels his panic, heartbreak, and the looming sense of betrayal, waiting for the story to unfold. Scene shifts from the tense bedroom to reflective moments earlier in Mark and Emily's life. The warm tones of memory contrast with the present anxiety, but subtle hints of tension creep in. Mark sank into the worn leather sofa in their living room, rubbing his face with his hands. The memory of Emily laughing over breakfast flickered in his mind. She had that habit of tilting her head just slightly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, smiling in a way that made him forget everything else. Those mornings had been simple, ordinary, yet full of quiet joy. Coffee steam curling between their hands, soft chatter about nothing, the comfort of shared routine, it was a life built on trust, on love. But recently, even these small rituals carried a weight. Emily's new hospital schedule demanded long, late nights. Emergencies could strike at any hour. Phone calls that couldn't wait often interrupted their conversations, sometimes leaving Mark standing in the hallway with an unanswered question, a frown he didn't know how to hide. And Mark's own work kept him away for hours that blurred into days. Their once effortless interactions were now clipped, hurried, brief. He had started noticing little misunderstandings, a misplaced note, a missed phone call, a tone of voice heavier than intended. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to leave a residue of tension that lingered like a shadow. David, Mark's younger brother, had always been a complicated presence in their lives. The two had grown up inseparable, sharing games, secrets, and dreams. Yet, beneath the closeness, a subtle rivalry had always existed. David had a charm Mark could never quite match, a reckless streak that sometimes earned him admiration, and sometimes Mark's quiet resentment. Childhood competitions, awards, parental attention, everything had built a fragile tension that never quite disappeared. Lately, David had behaved oddly, small quirks that Mark couldn't ignore. During the last family dinner, he had lingered near the shelves, his fingers brushing the frames of family photos longer than necessary, eyes flicking to corners of the room as if searching for something. A laugh came late, forced, and a glance toward Mark carried a trace of hesitation, or was it guilt? These moments seemed trivial at the time, but with the ring missing, they gnawed at him, tiny sparks threatening to ignite a fire of suspicion. Mark remembered another evening. Emily had come into the room, the soft glow of her presence calming his rising anxiety. "You're worrying too much," she said, laying a gentle hand on his shoulder. Her voice carried reassurance, warmth, and love. Mark wanted to believe her. He wanted to trust that their bond could weather anything. Yet, the combination of subtle tensions at home and David's increasingly peculiar behavior left him uneasy. His protective instincts, so strong, so ingrained, warned him to look closer, to question what he might once have accepted without thought. Mark's mind wandered to his own feelings of pride and responsibility. Love, he had always believed, wasn't only feeling, it was vigilance, care, and protection. He loved Emily fiercely, yet the same love made him painfully aware of how fragile trust could be. And as he reflected on David's presence in their lives, he realized that the brother he had once fully trusted now seemed a shadowed figure, a wild card whose motives were not entirely clear. Foreshadowing, Mark's thoughts returned to last week, when David had stopped by unexpectedly. He had leaned casually against the doorframe, surveying the room as if it were unfamiliar, his fingers tracing the edge of the dining table. "You sure you locked everything?" he had asked, in that teasing, almost mocking tone. Mark laughed it off at the time, thinking nothing of it. Now, with Emily's ring gone, the memory pricked at him like a needle. Mark's emotions twisted, love and fear, warmth and suspicion, pride and doubt. The home they had built, once safe and secure, now felt fragile, like glass balanced on a thin ledge. Every smile from Emily, every glance from David, carried dual meanings in his mind, the familiar warmth he cherished, and the shadow of something uncertain. As he sat there, the room quiet except for the faint hum of the refrigerator, Mark realized something unsettling. The love he had always counted on, the bond with Emily, the connection with his brother, was now interwoven with tension, uncertainty, and unspoken questions. And deep down, a single, gnawing thought took root: when something precious is lost, even briefly, the cracks in trust become impossible to ignore. The camera lingers on Mark, slumped in the sofa, eyes distant, fingers tapping the armrest, a storm of conflicting emotions brewing inside. The warmth of love remains, but beneath it, tension coils, ready to snap, hinting at the challenges soon to unfold. Scene opens in David's apartment, late afternoon. The room is dimly lit, a few rays of sunlight piercing the blinds. A quiet hum of a ceiling fan fills the tension-laden air. Mark stepped across the threshold, trying to mask the storm inside him with casual composure. He had told himself it was just a visit, that there was nothing to suspect, yet the memory of the missing ring clawed at his chest like a jagged knife. David looked up from the couch, grinning in that easy, familiar way that had once put Mark at ease. "Hey, man. Didn't expect you so early." Mark nodded, forcing a small smile. His eyes, however, scanned the room, settling on the edge of David's jacket draped over a chair. And then, it caught his attention, a glint of gold peeking from the pocket. Mark froze, his pulse spiking. No, that can't be. Time slowed. Every second stretched into a sharp, nerve-wracking eternity. He could see it clearly now, the familiar sparkle of Emily's wedding ring nestled in David's coat pocket. His stomach dropped. The warmth of memory, the mornings with Emily, the laughter, the comfort of her hand in his, was instantly replaced with a cold, gnawing dread. Shock washed over him first, followed swiftly by anger and disbelief. David, his voice was low, trembling with tension. Is that Emily's ring? David blinked, confusion crossing his face. What? I don't know what you're talking about. Mark's heart pounded. The mind races in moments like this, spinning possibilities. Was it deliberate? Was it a prank? Or something darker, something intentional? He felt a tight knot of betrayal coiling in his chest. How could my brother have this? The thought itself felt impossible, yet undeniable. He took a step closer, trying to steady himself, but every instinct screamed caution. David, it's hers. The ring. How did it get there? David's eyes darted nervously. A flash of guilt, or was it surprise, flickered across his face, but his mouth remained tight-lipped. I didn't take it, man. I swear. Maybe you left it here. Mark shook his head, anger rising. I didn't. She didn't. It was on her hand this morning. And now it's here, in your pocket. The room seemed to shrink around him. The familiar walls, the couch, the coffee table, all suddenly oppressive. He could almost hear his own heartbeat pounding in the silence between them. The clash of trust and doubt, love and suspicion, waged war inside him. Every memory of Emily, her tenderness, her laughter, her unwavering love, fought with the visual evidence before him. The ring, a symbol of their bond, rested in the hands of someone else. Someone he had always considered family. Fear gnawed at him, not just fear of David's actions, but a terror of what this might mean for his marriage. Mark's hands trembled. He clenched them into fists, then unclenched, unable to stop the rising panic. I don't understand. Why would it be here? David's gaze faltered. His voice was softer now, almost apologetic. I just found it. I thought I was helping. Mark's chest tightened. Suspicion, hope, fear, they all tangled in a chaotic knot. Could it really be an accident? Or was there a deeper betrayal hiding beneath the surface? Every instinct screamed caution, yet a part of him wanted desperately to believe in a simple explanation. The tension hung heavy, suffocating, as the two brothers stood in silence. Mark's eyes never left the pocket, his mind a whirlwind of what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. The audience feels the suspense, the uncertainty, trust and doubt clashing violently, every heartbeat echoing the possibility that the world he knew might be shifting beneath his feet. The scene closes on Mark, frozen in disbelief, staring at the ring, heart pounding, emotions tangled, leaving the audience questioning what is real, what is a mistake, and what secrets are yet to be revealed. Scene begins in David's apartment, the tension between the brothers thick and almost tangible. Afternoon sunlight slants across the room, casting long shadows that seem to mirror the unease in the air. Mark's hands were still trembling as he took a cautious step forward. The ring glimmered faintly in David's pocket, a cruel beacon of betrayal, or so it seemed. He forced himself to speak, trying to keep his voice steady. David. I need you to be honest with me. Did you take Emily's ring? David's eyes widened. He leaned back slightly on the couch, a defensive posture, fingers brushing nervously over the armrest. I swear, Mark, I didn't. You have to believe me. I don't even know how it got there. Mark's heart hammered. He could feel the surge of frustration rising, heat climbing to his face. Then explain it. You know how important this is. This isn't just a piece of jewelry, it's everything. It's her, it's our marriage. David ran a hand through his hair, biting the inside of his cheek. I know. I wouldn't, why would I? You think I'd? I don't know. His voice faltered, trailing off. The room felt smaller, oppressive. Every glance, every pause, seemed loaded with unspoken accusations. Memories of their childhood crept into Mark's mind, the scraped knees, the shared secrets, the quiet competitions, the moments when rivalry and jealousy had flickered beneath the surface of their brotherhood. It all felt magnified now, as if years of small resentments had pooled into this single, impossible moment. Mark struggled to contain his emotions. Anger rose first, hot, sharp, unrelenting. "You have to understand, David. I trusted you. Not just with this, but with everything." And now, his voice cracked. "Now it feels like nothing's safe anymore." David flinched, eyes darting away. "Mark, calm down. I'm telling you the truth. I didn't take it. I would never. Look, I found it. I thought I was helping." Mark's hands clenched at his sides. He wanted to believe his brother, desperately wanted to, but the visual proof in front of him gnawed at his rational mind. How could he have found it there? Why didn't he say something immediately? Suspicion tangled with anger and betrayal, twisting into a nearly unbearable weight. The silence that followed was suffocating. Mark's chest heaved with emotion, each inhale a struggle. Helping. You don't just stumble upon someone else's wedding ring and help. Do you know how this feels? To see something so personal, so sacred, in the hands of someone else. David's voice softened, almost pleading. "Mark, please. I didn't mean to. I was just trying to make sure it didn't get lost. I wanted to return it without making a big deal." Mark's mind raced. Could it really be that simple? Or was it a lie? A calculated betrayal? Every instinct, every memory of David's subtle oddities, clashed with his desperate desire to trust his brother. Fear, anger, and confusion warred inside him. If it's true, why didn't he say anything? And if it's false, what then? The room seemed to hold its breath, suspended in the weight of unspoken tension. Mark's eyes narrowed, searching David's face for any flicker of dishonesty, any hint of motive. David's gaze met his, shaky and uncertain, yet earnest. For a long moment, neither spoke. Words seemed inadequate to convey the storm of emotion in Mark's chest, the sense of betrayal, the hurt, the fear that this moment might unravel everything he held dear. Finally, Mark let out a strained breath, stepping back slightly. His fists unclenched, though his knuckles were white. I need to understand this. I need to know the truth, David. No more hiding, no more guessing." David nodded, his shoulders slumping with relief and anxiety intertwined. "I promise. I'll explain everything. Just, give me a minute." Scene ends with Mark standing tensely, the room heavy with unresolved questions. The audience feels the emotional collision between brotherly loyalty and suspicion, trust and doubt. The confrontation has begun, but the true truth remains just out of reach, building suspense for the next chapter of investigation and revelation. Scene opens in Mark's apartment. Evening has fallen. The room is dim, lit only by a single lamp. Mark sits at the dining table, head in his hands, replaying the confrontation with David over and over. The faint hum of the refrigerator and the ticking clock fill the oppressive silence. Mark's mind refused to rest. He had asked questions, demanded explanations, but each answer seemed partial, incomplete, leaving him suspended between hope and suspicion. His emotions were raw, anger, fear, heartbreak, and confusion twisting together into a knot that tightened with every thought. He knew he couldn't let it go, he needed answers, clarity, proof. He began methodically retracing the past week, trying to pinpoint when the ring had gone missing. Every memory was scrutinized under the harsh light of doubt. The morning Emily had left for the hospital, her hand bare, her smile warm, he replayed it a dozen times. Where had it gone after that? Who had been near it? Could it have slipped somewhere, accidentally, unnoticed? Or had someone taken it intentionally? Mark's thoughts turned to David again. The brother he had trusted implicitly now seemed an enigma. He reviewed their last interactions with careful attention. That day at the dinner table, the lingering glances, the fingers brushing over the family photos. David's casual comment about locking doors. Had he really meant it as a joke, or had it been a subtle signal, a warning, or even a cover for something else? The more Mark considered it, the less certain he felt. Sleep became impossible. He spent nights pacing the apartment, staring at the empty ring box on his nightstand. Each creak of the floor, each passing car outside, made him jump. Shadows in the corners of the room seemed alive, whispering secrets that weren't there. His thoughts churned: Emily's trust, David's intentions, his own judgment. He questioned everything he had assumed about his life, about the people he loved, and about himself. Mark began reaching out, quietly questioning family and friends. Have you seen Emily's ring? Did anyone notice it missing? He tried to keep his voice neutral, careful not to alarm anyone. Yet every response, however innocent, seemed loaded with implication. A casual remark from Emily's coworker about the hospital losing personal items suddenly felt like a clue. A neighbor's comment about David visiting unexpectedly triggered a spiral of suspicion. Every fragment of information, no matter how small, seemed to point to guilt, or so his mind convinced him. Red herrings began to dominate his thoughts. The grocery bag left near the kitchen counter, the stray key that didn't belong to anyone in the house, the jacket hanging by the door, he examined each as if it held the key to unraveling the mystery. Each discovery brought a mix of hope and despair. Could it really be innocent? Or was he being deceived by someone he trusted most? Mark's relationship with Emily suffered in silence. He found himself watching her, analyzing every gesture, every smile, every word. Was she hiding something? Did she know more than she was letting on? The thought of doubting her love made his chest ache, yet he couldn't stop. The fear of betrayal had rooted itself deep, gnawing at his rational mind and twisting his emotions into confusion and guilt. One night, after hours of restless thinking, Mark sat at the window, staring at the city lights flickering in the distance. He realized he was exhausting himself with conjectures, yet the drive for the truth would not allow him rest. He questioned himself: was he overreacting, letting paranoia consume him, or was his intuition guiding him toward an inevitable revelation? The line between perception and reality blurred in the dim lamplight. As days passed, the tension built. Each encounter with David was loaded with subtext. A simple question about a borrowed tool or casual comment about the weather felt like a test, a probe into the truth. Mark wanted answers, yet each interaction left him more unsure. The emotional weight was suffocating. He loved his brother, yet a simmering anger lingered. He trusted his wife, yet every thought of the missing ring stabbed at his confidence in that trust. Mark found himself alone in the quiet of the night, wrestling with his own mind. His reflection in the mirror showed a man exhausted, tormented by suspicion and fear. He realized the most difficult confrontation wasn't with David, or even with Emily, it was with himself. Could he maintain rational thought, or would his emotions and doubts consume him? The story of the missing ring had become larger than its physical size. It had become a mirror, reflecting hidden fears, unspoken insecurities, and the fragile edges of trust and love. Every creak of the apartment, every distant sound, every shadow seemed to carry messages he couldn't fully interpret. Each night ended in quiet despair, each morning began with a sense of dread, and the uncertainty gnawed at the very foundation of his relationships. Mark knew that he couldn't stop until the truth was uncovered. He had to dig deeper, ask harder questions, observe more closely. Every instinct screamed that there was a story behind the ring, one that would either heal the fractured trust or shatter it completely. And in the quiet, oppressive darkness of his apartment, he understood that the journey to the truth would demand courage, patience, and the willingness to confront the deepest fears he had about the people he loved most. Scene ends with Mark sitting alone at the dining table, the ring box empty before him, head bowed, hands clenched, as the weight of doubt, suspicion, and emotional turmoil presses down. The audience feels the escalating tension, the internal conflict, and the unresolved mystery that will soon demand answers. Scene opens in the late afternoon at David's apartment. Sunlight filters through the blinds, casting long, warm streaks across the room. Mark stands near the window, tense, while David paces slowly, finally stopping to face him. David ran a hand through his hair and sighed heavily, the weight of the silence pressing on both of them. "Mark. I should have told you sooner," he said, voice low and almost trembling. "I found it, the ring. I didn't know how to say it without causing a scene." Mark's eyes narrowed. "Found it? What do you mean, found it?" "It was in your pocket." "That doesn't look like finding anything, it looks like taking." His voice shook, a mix of anger and desperation. David swallowed hard. "I promise you, I didn't take it. I found it this morning. Emily, she dropped it. I saw it on the floor near her car while she was inside the hospital. She didn't notice, and I didn't want her to panic." Mark blinked, stunned. The explanation hung in the air, simple and almost painfully obvious. You mean she lost it outside? And you put it in your pocket?" "Yes," David said quietly. "I didn't know how else to keep it safe. I was going to give it back to her, but when you showed up, I panicked. I didn't want you to think I'd done something wrong." Mark felt his chest tighten. Relief surged first, washing over him, but it was mingled with lingering hurt and confusion. His mind replayed the past days, the confrontation, the sleepless nights, the spiraling doubt. Every misinterpreted glance, every anxious thought, every shadowed corner of suspicion, all of it was suddenly seen in a new light. He sank into the chair, running his hands over his face. All this doubt, all this fear, it was for nothing. The words came out as a whisper, more to himself than to David. David nodded, his own eyes softening. "I didn't want to cause trouble. I thought I was protecting both of you. I never imagined it would turn into this wall between us." Mark's mind struggled to catch up with the revelation. The missing ring, the suspicion, the sleepless nights, it had all been a misunderstanding, a protective act gone uncommunicated. And yet, the emotional toll had been immense. He felt anger at himself, at David for not speaking sooner, and even at Emily, though unfairly, for losing it in the first place. "Why didn't you just call me?" Mark asked, voice rough. "I would have understood. I overreacted, but I needed to know." David ran a hand down his face, exhaling slowly. "I thought it would be simpler if I handled it quietly. I didn't think it would become this mess. I wanted to protect Emily, and I wanted to protect you. I guess I just made things worse." Mark leaned back in the chair, finally allowing himself to breathe. His shoulders slumped as the tension that had gripped him for days began to ebb. The relief was almost overwhelming, but it was mixed with an acute awareness of how fragile trust could be, and how easily misunderstandings could escalate. He looked at David, truly seeing his brother for the first time in days. "You meant well," Mark said softly. "I can see that now. But, you need to understand how it felt. The fear, the doubt, the betrayal I thought I saw." He shook his head. "It's hard to describe." David nodded, eyes glistening slightly. "I know, Mark. I didn't realize how much it would hurt. I see that now." Mark's gaze drifted to the ring, now safely in David's hand. The small, gleaming circle of gold symbolized far more than marital commitment. It had become a mirror of trust, fear, love, and the fragile connections between people. He realized that for all its material simplicity, the ring had carried an emotional weight far beyond its size. I overreacted, Mark admitted, voice quieter, more introspective. I let suspicion and fear take control. I doubted my wife, I doubted you, and I let it spiral. David stepped closer, placing a hand on Mark's shoulder. It's okay, Mark. We're human. We make mistakes. The important thing is, we talk, we trust, we don't let silence make monsters out of nothing. Mark's chest swelled with emotion. Relief, gratitude, and lingering shame collided inside him. He realized how easily fear and assumptions had clouded his judgment, how quickly trust could be fractured by silence, and how vital communication truly was. He exhaled slowly, the tension in his body finally beginning to release. Okay, he said, voice steadying. We fix this. We tell Emily, we put it back where it belongs, and we make sure this doesn't happen again. David nodded, a small, relieved smile appearing. Agreed. And next time, I'll call. No more guessing games. Mark looked at the ring one last time, now a symbol not of fear or doubt, but of lessons learned. It wasn't just about the object, it was about understanding, patience, forgiveness, and the delicate balance of trust in relationships. He realized that the bond with his wife and the bond with his brother were stronger than this misunderstanding, but only if he approached them with honesty, humility, and care. The brothers sat together in the quiet room, the afternoon light softening the shadows. For the first time in days, Mark felt a sense of calm. The mystery had been solved, the misunderstanding clarified, and the tension that had gripped his heart began to melt into relief. And yet, a deeper understanding lingered. Trust, love, and communication were fragile, and even the smallest misstep could cause doubt to flourish. Mark silently vowed to protect what mattered most, to speak openly, and to forgive freely. Scene ends with Mark taking the ring from David's hand and placing it back in its box. He looks up, eyes meeting his brother's, sharing a silent acknowledgement of understanding, relief, and renewed trust. The audience feels the emotional release, the lessons of human complexity, and the fragile beauty of forgiveness. Scene opens the next morning in Mark and Emily's home. Sunlight streams gently through the curtains, bathing the living room in warm, soft light. The atmosphere is calm, but the emotional weight of the past days hangs lightly in the air. Mark sat on the edge of the sofa, holding the ring carefully in his hands. It gleamed in the morning light, a simple gold band, yet now it carried far more meaning than it ever had before. It had been the source of tension, suspicion, and sleepless nights, but it had also become a catalyst for reflection, understanding, and growth. Emily walked in, her face lighting up when she saw him. "Mark," she said softly, "is everything okay? You look different." He took a deep breath, the tension from the past week slowly easing. I've had time to think," he said, voice steady but tinged with emotion. "About the ring, about everything. I let fear and doubt take over. I questioned things I shouldn't have, and I'm sorry." Emily's eyes softened. She crossed the room and knelt beside him, placing a gentle hand on his arm. "Mark. I understand. I know it wasn't your fault. And I never stopped trusting you." Mark felt tears prick the corners of his eyes. The fear, frustration, and worry that had consumed him melted into a mix of relief and love. "I doubted you, Emily. Not because I don't love you, but because I was afraid. Afraid of losing what we have, afraid of being blindsided by something I couldn't control." Emily smiled softly, squeezing his hand. "We can't control everything, Mark. But we can trust each other, even when things seem uncertain. That's what love is." Mark nodded, taking a deep breath. "And I need to rebuild that trust. Not just with you, but with David too. I let suspicion cloud my judgment. I saw betrayal where there was none. I hurt people I love without even meaning to. Just then, David entered, carrying a small coffee tray. He looked nervous but determined. "Morning, Mark." "Emily," he said, voice soft. "I came to make things right, to talk." Mark gestured for him to sit. "David, I know now. I understand why you did what you did. You were trying to protect Emily, protect all of us. I let my emotions run wild, and I judged you unfairly. I'm sorry." David's eyes glistened with relief. "Mark. I'm sorry too. I should have told you the moment I found the ring. I thought I was helping, but I see now that silence just made things worse. I never meant to hurt you, or Emily, or our trust." Emily placed a hand on David's arm, her gaze steady. "We all made mistakes," she said gently. "But mistakes don't define us. What matters is that we forgive and learn from them. Right, Mark?" Mark nodded, swallowing hard. "Right. We forgive, and we move forward. Together." There was a long pause, the kind of quiet that carries weight but also relief. The three of them sat together, the morning sun warm against their faces. The ring sat on the coffee table between them, a silent reminder of what had happened, but also of what had been saved, their love, their bond, their trust. Mark reached out and placed a hand on David's shoulder. "I value our brotherhood more than I can say, David. I'm glad we can talk honestly now. No more secrets, no more assumptions." David nodded, a small smile breaking through his tension. "Agreed. And I promise, anything I do from now on, I'll make sure it's clear, no guessing games." Mark turned to Emily, taking her hands in his. "And you? I promise to communicate better, to trust you more, to not let fear or paranoia cloud my judgment. I love you, Emily, more than anything." Emily's eyes glistened with tears, a smile spreading across her face. "I love you too, Mark. Always. And I forgive you, fully. We're stronger together than any misunderstanding could ever make us doubt." The three of them sat there, sharing a moment of quiet connection. For the first time in days, the tension lifted, replaced by a sense of understanding and warmth. Each had acknowledged mistakes, confronted fears, and chosen forgiveness. Mark glanced at the ring one last time. Its meaning had shifted. It was no longer just a symbol of marital commitment, but a testament to the strength of communication, the importance of honesty, and the resilience of love. David leaned back, exhaling a sigh of relief. "I feel like a weight's been lifted," he said quietly. "I was so afraid I had ruined everything." "You didn't," Mark said firmly. "We all stumbled. But what matters is that we're learning, together." Emily rested her head on Mark's shoulder, and he gently placed an arm around her. David sat closer, a small but meaningful gesture of renewed trust. In that moment, the bonds between them, marriage and family, felt solid, unshakable despite the trials of the past days. Scene closes with all three sitting together, sunlight spilling over them, the gold ring gleaming faintly on the table. The room is calm, the air filled with relief and warmth. The audience feels closure, emotional healing, and the power of forgiveness and honest communication. Scene opens in the early evening. The sky outside is painted in soft hues of orange and purple. Mark, Emily, and David sit together on the porch, a quiet calm surrounding them. The golden ring rests on the small table in front of them, catching the fading sunlight. Mark took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past week finally lift. The storm of suspicion, fear, and emotional turmoil had passed, leaving clarity in its wake. His chest felt lighter, his mind steadier, and his heart open. He looked at Emily, then at David, and realized how precious these bonds truly were. "Thank you," he said softly, his voice steady but filled with emotion. For being patient with me. For trusting me even when I doubted. For standing by me through everything. Emily reached for his hand, her touch warm and reassuring. We love you, Mark. Always. And we forgive you. We all make mistakes, we all have doubts, but we move forward together. David nodded, his own eyes glistening. I learned a lot too. I thought I was helping by keeping things quiet, but I see now that honesty is stronger than any good intention. I won't let silence come between us again. The three of them sat in a peaceful silence, the kind that carries understanding without words. The air was filled with the soft chirping of birds settling in for the night, and the faint rustle of leaves in the evening breeze. For the first time in days, Mark felt complete calm, an inner peace born not from control, but from connection, trust, and forgiveness. Mark picked up the ring, turning it gently in his fingers. Its meaning had evolved, it was no longer simply a symbol of marriage, but a testament to endurance, patience, and love that could survive misunderstanding. He placed it carefully back on the table, a small, deliberate gesture of respect, for Emily, for David, and for the lessons they had all learned. He looked at them both and smiled, a quiet, heartfelt smile. We've faced a lot this week, but I think we're stronger because of it. Not just us individually, but us together. I won't take that for granted again. Emily rested her head on his shoulder. David leaned closer, a subtle but meaningful sign of familial unity. The three shared a soft laugh, the tension of the past dissolving in the warmth of connection. Mark's gaze drifted to the horizon, the colors of twilight painting the sky. He understood now that life would always bring challenges, moments of doubt, and fears that threatened to shake the foundation of love and trust. But what mattered most was how those moments were met, with honesty, courage, and an open heart. The golden ring caught the last rays of the sun, gleaming not as an object, but as a symbol of resilience, forgiveness, and enduring love. The three of them sat together, connected, whole, and at peace. Scene fades with the camera pulling back, showing the family silhouetted against the glowing evening sky. Their hands brushed gently, smiles soft but genuine, hearts aligned. The audience is left with a lingering sense of hope, the bittersweet understanding of human complexity, and the comforting knowledge that trust, love, and forgiveness can endure even the toughest tests.